Welcome to Secret Story. I used to play cards with Diane and her husband, Jeff. My brother and Jeff went to high school together, attended a couple of years of college together, and joined the military together. My brother made a career out of serving in the military. Jeff met Diane while serving and got out after his first hitch. They had a daughter, Sherry, and settled into routine married life. When my brother would come home to visit our parents, he would go by and see Jeff and Diane. They liked to play cards, and one night he invited me to go with him. I took a liking to Diane and I would play cards with them even when my brother wasn't around. We would have a few beers and eat pizza while we were playing cards. Sherry, and sometimes her friends, would hang around and eat pizza with us. Almost always wearing just a t-shirt. I took plenty of notice and would later jerk off thinking about them that I worked near where she worked, and pretty soon I started joining her and some of her co-workers for lunch. Sometimes, it was just Diane and me. Occasionally, we would have flirty conversations. I would tell her how nice she looked. One day at lunch, she asked me, if I wasn't married, would you want to date me? I said, of course. You are very attractive. I think we would do well together. Then she asked me, do you find me attractive enough that you would with me even though I am married? I think I sort of shocked her when I replied, yes. I'd with you anywhere, anytime. She said, you say that but you would probably chicken out at the last minute. Try me, I replied. How about next Wednesday night? She said. Jeff is working late shift and Sherry is going to a sleepover at a friend's house. You can come over after work. It's a date then, I said. I could hardly wait for Wednesday to come. We talked a couple of times in the days leading up to Wednesday. Are you sure you are coming? You won't back out on me? She said. Diane, I am looking forward to it. Nothing will keep me from coming. I replied. Wednesday finally arrived and I headed to Jeff and Diane's house. I had spent the whole day thinking about Diane. Not that it mattered. I was ready to her no matter what. That I arrived at their house around 7 p.m. Diane had told me that Jeff would have left for work by then and Sherry would be at her friend's house. Diane had just gotten home from work, still dressed in her business attire. When she saw me at the door, her eyes lit up and she pulled me inside. I really thought you would stand me up, she said. Not a chance, I replied. I've been waiting all week for this. Hardly inside the door, we kissed passionately. Let me put on some comfortable clothes, she said. She released me and headed down the hallway. A few minutes later she came back, wearing a thin top. Let's sit on the couch and talk a bit. She said. Jeff always calls me on his first break so we can't do anything until then. She told me that she loved Jeff but that their life was pretty stale. We rarely anymore. He is always tired when he gets home from work. And he never wants to eat. I said, I can't wait to do anything and everything with you. She smiled and said, I can't wait either. Just then the phone rang. It was Jeff. He and Diane chatted for a few minutes about their day and about their plans for the weekend. Finally, Jeff had to go back to work and they ended their conversation. Diane said, now I'm ready for some fun. She said. I'm ready for that now. That was incredible, she said. I haven't been like that in years. Before we again, I want to ask you a question, she said. Would you want to Sherry? I want you to be the first man to her. She hasn't had any real boyfriends. She is always telling me how much she likes you and can't wait for card night to come so she can see you, she retorted. I've always thought she was cute and to be honest, but I never thought I would get that chance. If I set that up, would you do it? She asked. Absolutely. I replied. If she is anything like her mother, it's going to be fantastic. I have an idea about how to get you two together. Give me a couple of weeks and I think I can make it work, she said. All I ask is that you tell me about it afterwards. We started again. A few weeks go by. Diane and I meet up a couple of times for lunch and she tells me she is still trying to figure out a way for me to Sherry. Sometimes we meet up in a local park. Finally, she tells me she has a solid plan. Jeff and I are going out of town to see a show with some of Jeff's friends from work. It is just overnight, but he doesn't want to leave Sherry at home by herself. She's not one to get into mischief, but he would rather have someone older around just to make sure. I suggested you could be that person and Jeff agreed. You can spend the night and have plenty of time with Sherry, she said. Just remember that I want to hear the details afterwards. Thinking about all the things we could do. When do I get to do this? I asked. Next Friday, Diane replied. We leave early afternoon and return the following evening. Perfect, I replied. I'm off a half day on Friday and I'll come by right after I get off. On Friday, I leave work around noon, grab a bite to eat, and head over to Jeff and Diane's house. I start to knock on the door when Diane opens it with a smile. Perfect timing, she said. We were just getting ready to leave. There is food in the fridge. Help yourself. Jeff came down the stairs carrying a suitcase. Thank you so much for agreeing to stay here with Sherry. I don't like leaving her alone. I know you will keep an eye on her while we are gone. Little did he know that I had had my eye on her for a long time. No problem, Jeff, I said. I am glad to do it. You are the best, Diane chimed in, giving me a wink and a little kiss on the cheek. With that, Jeff and Diane got in the car and backed out of the driveway. I watched them until they turned the corner and headed away. As I closed the door, Sherry came bounding down the stairs, wearing a t-shirt. She gave me a big hug. Oh, we are going to have so much fun, she said. To be continued. Welcome to Secret Story. Having returned home after visiting some friends, I had found my mother and one of her contractors the pool deck. I was shocked. I was aware she had arranged a meeting with him, but had no idea that was to be the reason that my mother had been a widow of 5 years. This was a bit overwhelming. One aspect that was even more surprising to me is the age difference between her and the guy. She was 43 and he would be about 25 to 30, more suitable to be my lover than hers. I was 21. After the shock of being found in that situation, we all moved inside. He was a virtual employee or contractor on one of her building sites since my father's death. She had taken over running the organization, which was basically a building development company. He was the electrical contractor that she had employed on a site under development. Why they were together was a mystery that I wanted explained. My own history was not a pleasant one. I had been involved in a cheerleaders squad. The football team used us for what they wanted when they wanted it, and that was more often than not. That we had multiple partners and nothing was sacred. We all participated in orgies of sex and booze after each game, win, lose or draw. Some even used stimulants to enhance their. My mother became aware of the activities and asked me to stop. I was reluctant to do so as we all were treated like beauty queens at college. We were in the forefront of any activity the school was engaged in. One afternoon after the game that won us the competition, I overdid it and got very drunk. I allowed myself to be used in a particularly. Heaven knows how many times that I could hardly stand, and somebody drove me home and delivered me to my front door. They rang the door chime and cleared off, leaving me alone. My uniform, or what was left of it, was in tatters. I was not alone, all the girls were involved and used by these animals. We were as bad as them and willing participants. When my mother opened the door, she was shocked to the core. Never had she seen anybody in such a state, and the only words that she used time and time again and became imprinted on my mind. She was right. My mother's words haunted me. I was so ashamed and disgusted I withdrew from the squad. I never went near any of them again, the girls or the guys. I never made any public utterances as to why I left, but everybody in the squad and team knew, and I was sent to Coventry. I became a virtual recluse for the remainder of my final year. After the initial shock and horror, my mother and I had become very much closer. She stuck to me and helped me get through the horrible situation I had found myself in. I cried a lot and we talked a lot, now we are like sisters. She is encouraging me to take a role in the company, mainly in the administration of it. I feel I have turned the corner and will never venture into that realm of life again. She recognizes I could not and did not want to become a celibate woman. Nobody was embarrassed or concerned. It was only virtual family. Unfortunately, a few months later, Tim, my boyfriend, was posted overseas, and I would not see him for a couple of years. We parted the best of friends. Things were working out well. Over time I adjusted to her dalliance with Mike and they had become a little more than casual lovers. He was regular visitor and often slept over at our place in Mum's bed. We were all involved in our own affairs and he was becoming more involved in the company operations, mainly at my mother's insistence. I had a feeling he would become a partner or director in the company before long. One evening we were all having dinner together. Mum informed us that she had to go to London for a few weeks on business. It was something that had come up as part of my father's estate and she had to go and sort the matter out. It was more or less a legal matter. It was straightforward but time-consuming, and a lot of documents needed to be signed, and arrangements etc. finalized. Mike would become a director and he and I would be in control of the business here while she was away. What with email and phone calls, there didn't appear to be any problems with her away. I could sign contracts and checks, so there were no foreseen problems. Mike now being a director, there would always be 2 signatories available should they be required. The only problem that we could foresee was the time difference. Should we need to talk on the telephone or correspond by email at the same time? Midday London time would be 11 p.m. here. I was sure we could work things out. Things progressed well, and with Mum's ability, everything was sorted out before she left. That I kept an eye on expenses and the contractors' accounts, and Mike coordinated the work on the 2 sites we now had running at the same time. Mike and I met regularly to discuss any problems, and this was usually on one of the sites. If anything needed sorting out, we would both discuss the problem and get a resolution. If we didn't agree, we emailed Mum and she had the deciding vote. Mum was going great guns in London. However, things did not move as quickly as we had hoped, and she had been delayed. Then there was a problem on one site that we needed to discuss with Mum. We emailed her with the details and she said she would ring. The call would be at 1 p.m. London time, which meant midnight here. Mike would have to be here. Mike came over for dinner. We had 1 bottle of wine and opened a second. We forgot Mike would have to drive home. He said he would sleep here in Mum's bed. He had done that often enough, but with her by his side. I said we had a bottle of wine and we were both a bit chirpy. Mum rang early and we sorted things out satisfactorily. We told her Mike would be sleeping in her bed alone. After the call we sat on the lounge together and talked about the decisions we had just taken with my mother. I don't know how or why it happened, but our conversation just stopped virtually in the middle of one item we were discussing. We looked at each other and God knows why I did it, but I kissed him. At first he tried to pull away, but what I had begun as a kiss on the cheek developed to kissing him on the lips. I was prepared to risk it all to let him have his way any way he wished. Neither of us had spoken since our lips met. He broke our embrace. I am sorry that I shouldn't have let this happen. We have to stop now. Mike was wanting it to stop. No. Please no. No, no, no. I screamed. Please don't leave me like this. Just once, just this once, I begged. No, this is wrong and this can't be allowed to happen. I don't care, she doesn't have to know, please just let us do it once. No, I can't let this happen. It's wrong. No. It's not wrong. There was no way I was going to allow him to escape my grasp on him. Then I felt his hands on my head. I had done this many times before, but I was now using every trick I had learned to make this an experience of a lifetime for him. After a few minutes I stopped long enough to ask him softly, "Do you really want me to stop now?" He replied almost inaudibly, "No." It didn't take him long. Did you enjoy that? I am so happy. This may be the only time we do this, but it may not, I hope. Then he did something I wasn't expecting. "Now you know why I want you so much." He didn't hesitate when he looked my Before going down on me, he said, I think this needs a bit of a cleanup down here, you are ready for this. It has been ages since anybody has done that to me, now I really envied my mother. If ever she tires of him, I will put myself forward to take him over. Then he spoke. Your mother must never hear of this. This is something that must remain between the two of us. I just wish it could. I mean the way we are at this moment. I understand what you are saying, and if she had seen or heard us, I doubt that she would have ever let you or me back into this house again. Actually, I wouldn't mind, we could live together and do this for the rest of our lives. Well, we wouldn't go thirsty, perhaps living off love might be a little more difficult. One of us would have to earn a living. I have to have a shower. As I left to go to the bathroom, Mike followed me. We went back to the bedroom. What happens now? I asked. Well, there is one thing left to do. I thought we would have achieved that an hour ago, but we have gone this far, we may as well go the whole way. Mike asked me, well, it's up to you, which way are we going to do it, have you ever? He asked. Yes, many times, but I don't necessarily like it. How is it feeling now? Mike asked. Great, I love it. We never said no, that was not allowed. You actually had no say in it? No. If you wanted to stay in the squad, that was the rule. Well, it hasn't done you any harm. How much do you like my mother? Will you two ever get married? That's up to her. There is more to love in any arrangement that we end up getting into. Remember, we would be business partners as well. That may be difficult, we will have to wait and see. If she can handle the age difference socially, so can I. I hope you do. But between now and then, I still want to share you with her. I am not so sure of that. I can't believe we have gone this far. But I have, and after tonight it must stop. Mike was getting a bit serious, so I dropped the subject. I wanted my way, and I wasn't going to get it at the moment. One last go, before we go to bed. I went to the bathroom to clean myself up. He followed me. Where do you keep your gardening equipment? Mike inquired. That I was curious and asked, excuse me, what are you talking about? We need to tidy up, remember I offered to do it for you. You are amazing. I laughed. Mike got into bed beside me within a few minutes. Mike was asleep, and I was not far behind him. Tomorrow we would have to work out what we were going to do between now and when Mom came home. When she came home, I knew it must stop. And I hoped we could. I knew it and Mike knew it. Tonight would be something that I would never forget. Tomorrow was another day.